Welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be one of those videos that's a little bit different from the other ones. Today I'm just taking out my hair from the braids that are under here because obviously I have my bonnet on. I don't normally do that. This is just like the preliminary before I actually do my hair. So let me just take this off. So these are what the braids look like. I'm not really like a natural hair YouTuber. I just thought it would be like an interesting thing to do while I talk about some stuff. The theme of me taking out my hair, I just wanted to talk about like hair in general, because I feel like over time I've kind of realized it's become like a little bit of a big part of my identity, I'd say. I think it's very identifiable. I think me and my big afro, and I've had like longer hair for my whole life, I'd say. It's more just so some context for kind of like the way that I view my hair. I think also me being black and black people, like natural hair being such a big thing, it just become like an identifier for me, I'd say. That's always been kind of, I don't want to say difficult, but it's always been an interesting experience. So I'd say when I was younger, like in elementary school and stuff, I was made fun of a lot for my hair because I had like just little braids, and kind of like the ones that you see me in right now. I had braids in all the time. I stayed with those braids all the way up through like halfway through middle school, and I was like, I'm gonna try something different. I started wearing my hair out and doing my own hair and kind of just like seeing what that was like, and that was really, really fun. But I noticed that I got compliments a lot. Like I was like, oh, I love your hair, I love your hair, I love your hair. I think especially because for a lot of people, they don't really expect black girls to have like long thick hair, because there wasn't like that type of like natural hair representation at that time. A lot of people never really saw that. So then as a result, the compliments I always got were more based in shock than anything. So it was never like, wow, I love your hair because it's beautiful. It was, I love your hair because it's beautiful, and like, how did you do that? Like what happened to that? But even still, I always felt kind of average in like, average in like the aspect of everything about me. I never really felt like special in any particular way. So I really didn't believe that anything about my hair was particularly unique, but a compliment is a compliment. And at the time I was very insecure, so I was going to take whatever I could get. So then over time, I kind of started to internalize these compliments because I wasn't getting complimented or anything else. If anything, I got bullied about everything else about me. So my hair was the only thing that was really garnering any positive attention. So I kind of stuck onto that, and that kind of just became my thing. So I would wear my hair out in the same way every single time. At that time, I was also obsessed with like texture, and I really wanted that like looser, like you guys know the curls that you often saw in like a lot of biracial or like ethnically ambiguous girls. And I really, really, really wanted that. So what I used to do was I used to not separate my curls. And like, so you see this, I'm gonna end up separating those pieces. But when I was younger, I never separated them. I kept them in that stiff, like post braid crimp, because I thought that like the more defined my hair was, the better that it looked. So that meant that if it rained, if it snowed, if I was gonna have a bad hair day in any way, if I tried a new product and it didn't work, that basically meant that like the day was gonna be ruined because my hair didn't come out the way that I wanted it to. Like I began to build a routine that was like, this will never go wrong. There was no room for error. So there was no room for me to even have that much variation. But when I did have that variation, it was like I was in the worst mood. I felt very ugly. I hadn't really gotten into makeup and like dressing up as much, so I couldn't really lean on like other beauty practices, I guess you could say. And also I was like middle school, early high school, so that was hard too. But for the most part, if my hair looked good, I felt good, which is like pretty consistent for a lot of people. When I was, let's say like a freshman in high school, I got heat damage, and it was really, really bad. It was bad in the sense of like I had never experienced heat damage or damage of any kind. before. So experiencing it like that, and my curls weren't looking right, and for somebody who'd like used the same products and did the same thing week in and week out, having my hair look that different was really, really heartbreaking. So I was, of course, devastated. And a lot of that was tied up in the fact that my hair was like the only part of me that was like good or attractive. Me having that only part of me be damaged meant that there was nothing attractive about me left. So it left a lot of room for insecurity and a lot of room for more insecurity to build. And I really had to like bring it down and kind of be like, you know what, like it's okay. I still have my health, like I still have my wits, I still have a lot going for me, and hair, of course, in most cases grows back. So I can always just like protective style it out until it grows back, or I can like find more creative ways to style it. So that became a time of experimentation. So I experimented a lot with trimming my hair. I experimented a lot with different styles, a lot of full locks, a lot of knotless braids. And I actually got really good at doing those on myself. I kind of came out of that with like a new perspective on my hair. So when I started doing braid outs following that kind of like heat damaged period, I definitely appreciated the volume a lot more. I was fluffing out my hair a lot more, and I wasn't using as much gel or as many like defining products. I'd embraced kind of frizzy hair a lot more. My hair was just a lot bigger, that's what I'd say. Definitely wasn't as long, but it was a lot bigger, and I was kind of like enjoying that extra volume, especially because during the time period where I had heat damage, I was also dealing with like a lack of volume, and like I definitely was shedding a lot more than I normally did, and that was very scary. It just looked like my hair was like falling out of my head. Being able to kind of like go through that experience, I wouldn't say it was nice, because definitely emotionally I was in turmoil, but it wasn't the worst. I'd say like I think I learned a lot out of it, and I think it taught me to not be as attached to my hair. I definitely say I still definitely am, because like I said before, it still is the only thing that I get complimented on. And that's not to say like anybody owes me compliments, or if anybody notices me, they're noticing me for my hair. So sometimes that can be a little bit difficult, because like, of course you don't want to feel like a wig on a mannequin, but it's also kind of ridiculous to complain about something that people find nice about you, because nobody has to compliment me. So the fact that people go out of their way to say something polite is really, really, like, that's very nice. So definitely not a bad thing. It's just something that I've been working on not internalizing and kind of like making my shtick, which is interesting because I'm making a video about it, but it's like, you know. So the next thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was texturism. A lot of people have experience with that, but I'm talking about it pertaining more to Black people, because that's like the thing I have the most experience on. Texturism is 100% a thing, and not only that, I think it goes hand in hand with colorism. So the same way that like a lot of people don't necessarily appreciate the beauty in darker skin textures, darker skin colors, they don't really appreciate the beauty in tighter hair textures. I think one of the ways that I personally dealt with it, because I don't necessarily have 4C hair, but I definitely do have like tighter curls, kind of. The ways that I personally dealt with it was like really, really, really wanting my hair to be like that perfect, like spiral roundabout curl. And one thing about my hair is without a braid out or a twist out, it's not defining. I've never been a wash and go person. It literally has never worked. I've tried every technique. It's just not for me, which is okay. But as a kid, dealing with that was always kind of hard, because what I saw as pretty was that hair texture. So I never dealt with that much discrimination about my skin color. My hair was what I fixated on. So while my personal experience wasn't necessarily with colorism, even though I know a lot of people's focus was that, for me personally, it was a lot on like the texture of my hair and me wishing it was a different texture. I know I wanted to get a texturizer at some point, but for those of you who don't know, a texturizer is like a diluted relaxer. So instead of making your hair pin straight, it's gonna make it a little bit more wavy. I really, really wanted to be like that. And I think, of course, I was kind of able to like escape the grasps of that and kind of embrace when my hair kind of like is a little bit frizzier, it's a little bit more of like an afro texture, and it's not super defined with like a fresh twist out of braid out, I'm able to kind of just like embrace that and be like, hey, there's not a single defined curl in this whole head, but it's okay because I like the shape, I like the way that it looks, and I think it still looks good. But not everybody is able to come to that little happy ending. And there's a very interesting video that I saw a while ago about how type 4 hair can still be appreciated in social media, but only when it's long and thick, and how like women with like afro textured hair that's a little bit shorter or a little bit thinner don't have the same experiences as people with big blown out afros. And I completely understand where that's coming from, because there isn't really a lot of appreciation for short natural hair. It's mostly appreciation for that super long, super thick. Even with colorism, like people appreciate women like Lupita Nyong'o and all that because her skin it looks literally like butter. It looks like satin. It's smooth, it's acne free, it has no texture, it's hairless. So all of those things combined, not that any of those things are bad or good, but all of those things combined therefore make her skin color acceptable. If her skin didn't look like she could be on the commercial of a cocoa butter, people would not be going out their way to comment on how pretty her skin texture was, or skin color. I can't say texture. Skin color was. Not because it wouldn't be pretty if it wasn't clear, but because people think that unless it beats all of those other skin issues or skin problems, then that cannot like defy the fact that it's also dark. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think in the same way, if type 4 hair is ugly by society's standards and we don't like afro hair, right? Like we as in society, it's been explained that that is not the preferred hair texture. The preferred hair texture, if it's curly, is going to be those like big, voluminous, like 3C, 3B curls, if that's what we've identified as good looking. But a woman doesn't have that hair, then she has to have all the other boxes checked. It's like, okay, we'll give you an exception for that one thing that you didn't really fulfill if you do everything else. So now her hair has to be super long, super thick, no split ends, like nothing, no other issues, in order for it to be considered even like remotely like something that you can even appreciate publicly, you know? So if you go to those natural hair pages where they're showing off natural hair, they're like, well, black women can grow their hair long too. Black women have long, thick, pretty hair too, da 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 da. So that kind of becomes the message of like, oh, well, we can do that too. And that's the time when it's pretty, which is fine if that's what you deem as pretty. But I think it's just interesting because when you look at like other cultures, in particular white people, long, short, blue, purple, like in a bob, in the big beach waves, like there's a lot of different hair textures and like styles that are deemed pretty and acceptable. So I think it's kind of interesting, like in the black community there's a much smaller margin for like what the quote-unquote exceptions are, but I do definitely think that like across all groups and ethnic groups of people, thick hair is definitely appreciated and long hair is definitely appreciated. I'm not gonna lie and say like white, Hispanic, Southeast Asian, like literally every group that you can think of, everybody appreciates long, thick hair. But I think with black people, when you add the texture into it, it kind of adds a different level of it, of like, okay, well, we can have an exception for that one thing if you do this. And it's kind of sad because a lot of that discrimination is within people who also have natural hair. So it's kind of unfortunate that like it has to be that way. I also think like, oh, she's a bald-headed bitch, da 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 da, being used as an insult to one another. It kind of also emphasizes how much we hype up and appreciate long, thick, natural hair. Or like, oh, I got a lot of, like for women who wear wigs, like, oh, I got hair under this wig too. It's like, you don't have to prove that. Like, it's okay if you don't, you know what I mean? But that's my opinion. But for a lot of people, you do have to prove that. Like, you do have to prove that, like, under that wig, or like when you take out your braids, your hair is actually long. That's something that like you can show off. And I think that like wigs were originally made like aside from like colonial men, but like one of the biggest intentions of wigs were for women who don't have hair. And that's perfectly acceptable. So if you don't have hair under the wig, then like you're kind of the target audience for wigs anyway. So it's not necessarily like you're doing anything wrong. You're just using it how like it was intended to be used. And that's not necessarily saying that like if you have hair and you're wearing wigs, that's a bad thing. Also use it the same way. Like I really don't understand why there's just such a big like fuss over what people have under their wig cap. Like, let's all focus on what's growing out of our scalps, you know? Okie dokie. So now we're in my bathroom just to separate these curls a little bit because I'm looking a little colonial, and I'm not trying to go for that Thomas Jefferson look today. If you guys like that, that is your prerogative, which is exactly what this next little segment is going to be about. I'm a true believer in what grows out of your head is literally your business. I feel like everybody should have the right to do what they want with their hair. I think if you're grown and you're not doing anything that's like gonna give you some horrible disease, or like that woman who put Gorilla Glue in her hair, as long as you're not doing anything along those lines and you know what you're doing and you're an adult, please by all means like do what you want with your hair. I think people being up in arms over women getting relaxers is a little bit dramatic, especially considering like you don't know what type of professional life she lives. What if she's like a surgeon and she needs to put one of them little surgeon hats on all the time? How is she gonna, even me, right? With my picked out big old fluffy afro, how am I gonna put a surgeon hat on? I can't even put a regular hat on my afro. Maybe she needs her hair to be more small and condensed, so a relaxer just makes her job easier. You know what I mean? Maybe that's just what she needs to do. So I think like the notion that everybody has to do what you're doing in your life because you decided that's the best option to you doesn't really make much sense. Look at me. I've been natural my entire life. I've never had a relaxer. I've dyed my hair with box dye and it just came out brown one time. So I've never really had those like super fun experimental phases. And for people who like hair is genuinely just hair and they don't really care about like damage and all that, why not like style your hair how you want, cut it however much you want, dye it as much you want. If you want to bleach the whole thing off, if you want to get an undercut, do what like pleases you and what makes your life better and easier. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it literally is your hair, and for the most part it grows back. So do what you want. And another thing I would never ever do is be in another grown person's business. What's going on? Why? It was never even my concern, you know what I mean? Like on social media and stuff, because like I end up getting a lot of natural hair stuff or like just black hair stuff on my feed. All of the like comments where people are like criticizing women, let's say they have hair down to like their tailbone or to their hip and they cut their hair and it's just a whole bunch of, how could you do this? I wish I had hair like this. I know what I would do if I had. Well, you don't, and you actually don't know what you would do if you had hair like that, because nobody ever does until they have it. Like, do people honestly think it's a coincidence that everybody with super long and thick hair always ends up wanting to cut it? No, it's not a coincidence. Everybody with long and thick hair feels that way because that's a shared experience that they have. But if your hair isn't long or thick, then you gotta stay on them people's business. You know what I mean? Like, for example, people who were relaxing their edges, right? Obviously you could tell my edges are straight. I have straight, like completely straight baby hairs. So there's no way I'm going on the comments of somebody with like really like coarse edges and criticizing them for relaxing their hairline, because I don't know what their experience is. Whether that's like the best decision or not, I can't really say, because that's not the experience that I have. So who am I to talk about what they're going through if A, they didn't ask me, and B, I didn't even go through that. So I have no idea what that's like. So then for me to like sit on my high horse and be like, oh, why would you do that? That's not good. Like, you're not even a real natural anymore. Like, who am I to say that? Because my experience is completely different. So then me going out my way to criticize this person for doing something to make their experience easier isn't fair, because I don't know what their experience is like. Which is why I personally stay out of grown people's business. And if you're a grown woman or man and you're doing what you want with your hair because it makes your life easier, better, it just improves your experience in general, then like, as long as you're not harming anybody, then I don't really have an issue with that. Even like wigs and stuff, I've never really worn a wig before, but do as you please. I think like, if you don't necessarily care about like the possible damage that the glue could do to your hairline, then go ahead and do it. Or same thing with bleach. Like, people who bleach their hair all the time and who color their hair all the time, I think that they understand the damage that they're doing to their hair. I don't think that like the comments on YouTube or like on an Instagram video is what's gonna like explain to them or to like notify them of the damage that they're doing to their hair. I'm sure every single time they wash their hair, they see the difference from the last time that they bleached it. So I don't feel the need to tell them like, oh, FYI, your hair is damaged, because I'm sure they know exactly how damaged it is. Probably more than I do, because I'm not there. Like, I'm not there and that's not my hair. So as long as everybody in the situation knows what they're going into, like, go ahead. I'm sure people who relax their hair, they're fully aware of like the possible damage that they could be incurring, and I'm sure that they understand that their curls are going to be ruined. That's the whole point of relaxing your hair. You don't want curls anymore, you know? So I think as long as like nobody's being told like a false truth, or like, oh yeah, your hair is gonna be fine, I don't have an issue with people doing what they want to their hair. As long as they're informed and consenting, please, by all means, do what you want. If it's gonna make you happy, do what you want with your hair. And I think a lot of people in like the comments of those videos, I think they would be a lot happier if they were able to do exactly what they wanted with their hair. I think that's why they feel very compelled to go out and be like, oh, you're so stupid, why would you cut your hair? Da, 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 da. I think it's because they didn't get the opportunity to like experience that. So they're upset that somebody else is like taking that leap of faith, because they might be a little bit afraid to, which is fine. It's okay to be afraid. I'm scared to like bleach my hair or color it, so I'm not gonna do it. And I'm not gonna harass other people for doing it either. Even if I'm curious about it, like, the most I'll do is ask them like, oh, how does your hair feel now? Do you have to do more treatments, whatever. But I'm not gonna go under a comment section and be like, oh, you're so this and you're so that, how could you have done this to your hair, da 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 da, because that's not my business or my problem. So that's just my philosophy. That's just how I feel about it. This is how my hair looks now. This is a lot more defined than I normally get. I tried to do like a lot smaller braids, and I actually let them dry the whole way this time. So that's why everything is so like prim and proper. It would definitely get bigger as the weeks go on, like literally any more humidity and it'll grow. So that's pretty much what my hair looks like. This is the side, this is the back, this is the front, this is the other side, and then the back. So yeah, I'm probably just gonna keep on fluffing it out because I normally like my hair a little bit bigger than this. But yeah, that was me talking about hair for like 20 minutes. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.